Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Sports Timeout. I'm Anthony Polidano, and in today's show, we've got Kevin from the Source with us. And Kevin, as always, thanks for coming aboard.
Boy, it seems like it's been forever since I've been here.
I know, back by semi-popular demand.
That's not what I hear out there, but whatever you say, you're the boss.
I should say the aerodynamic Kevin Lozano,
yes.
the summer look. Nice.
Beautiful.
Nice. We are talking about the Spring Sports Player of the Year winners. And this spring, kind of not one of our greatest springs ever for the area. Only one league champion, and that was Warren Mott getting a share of the MAC White. A couple district champions, but not bad overall. You know, not a terrible year, but maybe a little bit of a down year compared to what we're used to around here.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take the good with the bad. I mean, and this wasn't a bad year by any sense of the imagination. I mean, district time was exciting. Regional time was exciting. Ford ended up upsetting Stevenson in the district, ended up going on to win the district title. Stevenson's boys came through and won a district championship. Played the eventual Division I state champion De La Salle. Got nothing to be ashamed of there. Soccer-wise, it's kind of a rough year for our teams. Maybe one of those rebuilding years. Congratulations to Eisenhower for making it to the state finals, but. It was just one of those years where, maybe this was the building blocks for next year.
And I should point out, when we talk about the years our teams have, the shift in our coverage area,
exactly.
Not really a shift in what you do at the Source. You still cover all the same teams, but we no longer on Timeout cover Eisenhower when we consider Player of the Year voting and that sort of thing. We still see them plenty of times against our other teams because they obviously play them a lot. But we did add Warren Mott, so that changes up things, makes the vote a little more interesting. Maybe some of the teams not as familiar with each other as Mott in some divisions isn't up in the higher divisions as are some of our other teams. In some sports, Mott is kind of around Sterling Heights in terms of competitiveness. So it does factor into the voting, and hopefully we'll get Mott playing some of our other local teams as the years go on, and they get a little more familiar with each other. But plenty of Mott kids in Sterling Heights, and we're happy to have them aboard. And it'll be an exciting football year because they got a pretty good football team coming up.
And it wasn't that long ago when Mott had, I think, back-to-back years of going to the state championship game.
Yeah.
So, in baseball.
Yeah.
So
Sean Maloney, good coach. Now, we'll talk about our voting here for Player of the Year. Again, the criteria has to be someone from one of the 5 teams we cover: Mott, Stevenson, Sterling Heights, Ford, and Utica. Coaches could not vote for their own players, but they had to participate in order for their own players to be eligible. You and I can vote for anyone we want of the 5 teams we cover. 10 points for a first place vote, 6 points for a second, 3 for a third. It's not really it's not predicated upon who is going to be the best college player. It's not a prospect vote. It's who had the best year. To say that if we're going to base it on who is going to be the best college player, then maybe we should give it to C.J. Elanian of Warren Mott, for football in the fall, just because all the scouts, are onto him and he's a blue chip prospect. Where maybe, if Stevenson runs a table, a Fracassa or a Mershman, it's not just on potential, it's on achievement. So injuries play a factor in that, and so on.
And these decisions this year are tough.
Yeah.
I mean, all 3 sports that we're going to hit today, there was some thinking involved.
Yeah.
I mean, and I feel bad for some of the coaches that had to vote too, because, some of the coaches don't see some of the players that we're voting for. And I mean, obviously that plays into their decisions.
Right.
And, in some years it's cut and dry. We can pick,
Yeah.
you and I can
Yeah.
pick 4 or 5, 8
Yeah.
girls or
Yeah.
guys in some sports. Then you're eliminating some. And then, you never want to leave anyone out, but we have to do that. And it's never easy, and especially this season was tough.
And it's human nature for coaches to vote for a player that impressed them when they face them. There's a number of times where a coach will say, who was blah, blah, blah's best player? And I'll say, probably this player or that player. And then the response will be, well, they didn't do anything against us. And they'll remember the players that made an impression against them. But now that we've got all that out of the way to the meat and potatoes here, we'll start out with girls soccer. As we said, no division winners in girls soccer this year, no district winners, but start out with 4 going to 1, who your top 4 were.
In 4th place, I picked Alex Clues from Sterling Heights. I thought she just had an outstanding year for the Stallions. She's a threat every time the ball's on her toe. 3rd place, I took her teammate, Kelsey Young, who moved back to defense this year, and I thought she was a standout back there. I thought a lot of Stallion success started with her in the back. I think her career is going to blossom over the next year or so here for her.
And that's a tough thing to do, to ask a kid who scored close to 20 goals the year before to then move back and, not really come near the goal, playing defense, and she did it. And now a lot of players, the glory positions are those offensive positions. So to move her back on defense and have her embrace the role, was big for her. So.
And hopefully that she goes by the slogan, defense wins championships, because she's very good. 2nd place, I took Taylor Newhite from Ford. What more can we say about her? She was outstanding this year. She can play forward, midfield, defense, wherever Stacy wanted to put her. She was fine in all those positions. And number 1, I took Alex Cousineau from Stevenson. I thought she was the best goalie in the MAC. I thought arguably one of the top 2 or 3 in the entire state. She didn't have a lot of offense to go with her this year over at Stevenson. She lost a lot of 2-0 games, 1-0 games. As a goalie, some goals you just don't have a chance on, and that was her thing. But the games I saw her playing in, games that ended up 2-1, 2-0, could have been 7-8-0 if it would have been her on goal.
My voting, I had Cousineau number 4, so we differ there. Just Stevenson obviously had a down year. This was the first ever losing season for Bob Mondu on the girls' side, so they only won 4 games. And you're right, she did face a lot of shots, and they graduated Vanessa Atanasowski, Amy Trandell, Lauren Turkington. That was like 40 goals nearly graduating. Right. And then the little offense they did have, Lipa got hurt, Mallory McCarthy got hurt. They had no offense,
right.
and she had to do it on her own. She still had 6 shutouts and, a real great team player. This is a player that had, I think, 10 shutouts as a sophomore and then lost her starting position when Chelsea Priest came back from injury, and she was kind of, the 1A starter. She wasn't really the backup because they split most of the time, but she willingly stepped back and let Chelsea, take more of the limelight, knowing that she would get her chance her senior year again to impress, the scouts and whatnot. And she had 6 shutouts, and she's a very good goalie. And I thought it was interesting, if you look at the all-county lists, strange year for goalies in the county. First team all-county, no goalies.
Exactly.
No one on the second team. She was the only one that made any of the all-county lists, including honorable mention. She got third team all-county as a goalie, and kind of weird not to pick someone as a first team all-county goalie. I guess we kind of unofficially nominate her first team. But I picked Alex Clues of Sterling Heights as my number 3. Very talented sophomore, very strong. I know Steve Fiordalisi thought that she played outstanding. Real nose for the goal. 16 goals this year.
Goals, 7
assists, and some clutch goals for them as well. She is not just a goal scorer. I have a feeling, might get moved to the middle next year. She's very good ball handler and very good with the ball and a strong player. She took some shots there and would always wind up with a couple shiners from taking elbows, but I had her 3. I had her teammate, Lauren DeStilio, number 2. Sterling Heights had a very nice team this year. I felt like their record was a little bit misleading as to how good they were. they just didn't quite have the depth, I thought.
Got tired late in games.
Yeah, and depth might be a problem for them next year as well, especially with Destilio moving on to college. But she was a great distributor for them. I know she has a great AAU or travel reputation, but very good distributor at 10 goals, 13 assists for them this year. A leader out there, just a nice girl, unselfish player, and kind of everything kind of flowed through her off of her foot. She got the ball moving and was dangerous enough to do damage on her own. Taylor Newhite, I thought, was the clear number one. You're right, she does play all over for Ford. Stacey Rogers obviously knows a lot more about soccer than I do. I felt,
I've seen you play
in my
soccer.
humble
She definitely
opinion,
knows.
two left feet, exactly. I felt that Newhite was best utilized in the midfield. They would put her back defensively sometimes, but when she was in the midfield, no one could really take the ball from her. She's such a ball handler.
She's able to create on her own.
Yeah.
And which makes her even more dangerous because if two players start coming after her, it will leave somebody else open.
Yeah, if she was in the midfield, the ball rarely got to the defense because she controlled the game so much and she created so much offense for other teammates as well. So she was outstanding and only a sophomore, and she's got a chance to be one of the best we've ever covered. Alyssa Talang at Eisenhower was great for 4 years going to Kentucky. Taylor Newhite is kind of in that class of player, and I know when Tim Storch and Troy Athens played against Ford and beat them in the playoffs, that was the one player that he was really concerned about. She was an excellent player.
He knows talent. That's for sure.
Yeah, he knows talent.
His resume says he knows talent.
Exactly. As far as the results go, Taylor Newhite is the winner. So I got that one right.
Yeah.
Alex Kuzno finishes second with 33 points.
I
Destilio a
want a
close
recount.
third. Destilio a close third. So really a pretty close vote between the top three players.
Look who snuck in number 4.
Yeah, Rachel Cheney, the sophomore at
Utica.
Utica. Very good midfielder. Didn't quite have as good a year this year. She had her freshman year. She got a lot of attention. I think made all-state team as a freshman. And we'll see if she picks it up as her career goes on. Alex Clues finishes 5th. Jennifer Frage, the goalie for Sterling Heights, 6th. Kelsey Young, 7th. Becky Barrels, the junior forward for Utica, finishes 8th, and she's got a very strong leg, very talented. Leanne Bohm and Bowers tie for 9th, a couple Ford players there. And Bohm, a real potential to be a special player. She's a lot like, and in my opinion, Kelsey Young. She has all the skill to play up top, but she's used in the back and is a really nice player for Ford as well.
So now what we move on to?
Yeah, now we go to softball.
Softball.
So this is a very tough year. Mainly, in my opinion, you had one team that was, throughout the whole year, clearly the best team. They got upset in the playoffs by another local team when the player had an eye-opening performance in those playoffs, and because of swine flu scares and weather, our teams didn't play each other a lot this year. So it makes it a little difficult. Stevenson had, I think players pulled from each other because you have probably off that team when it's all said and done, 7 college players on that team.
Stevenson fell into, traditionally, not every year, but almost every year, the district that involves Ford and Stevenson, Chippewa Valley and Fraser, that district, if you are the favorite in that district, even when Romeo was in there, you don't want to be the favorite going in, because you're probably going to lose. And it came out and happened again this year. Yeah. For some reason, that district is just upset city, and I don't even know if you want to even call an upset when Ford beat Stevenson, because you had 2 great pitchers going at it, and Joe Colts got the better of the Titans that day. It was a great baseball game or softball game.
What do you got for your top 4?
My top 4. I went with Marissa Borcal, screwed it up already.
That's all right.
Sorry. Now, I was thinking about her teammate, who I picked number 4, Jessie Plague, the pitcher from Stevenson. What more can you say about Jessie Plague? I mean, she just goes out there game after game after game, throws strikes. I wouldn't consider her an overpowering pitcher, but she throws strikes, and like you said, she's got so many college-bound athletes behind her and in front of her that they play defense behind her, and she's a big reason for their success. 3rd place, another Stevenson player, Mackenzie Jones. The home run she hit to send Stevenson into
Yeah.
the final game
At this
against
point
Ford.
today, I think that's the individual play of the year at this
That
point.
was just
Yeah.
remarkable. And it wasn't just a 201-foot shot.
Yeah.
This thing was gone.
Yeah.
One of the longest home runs I've seen hit. Joe Colts from Ford, I picked her second. Joe had a great year. Ford's record was right around the 500, but they ended up winning the district championship. People know Joe for her pitching. You got to look at what she did hitting the ball this year. She had 25 RBIs, 3 home runs, almost 500, hit 494. She did it on both sides
Yeah.
of the dugout or of the field. So she did offensively and defensively. Number one, I took Marissa Barkowski. What more can you say? That this girl's done it all for 4 years for Stevenson. She's a leader behind the plate. She leads off. She can hit home runs. She can hit triple. She can double. She's got great speed. She throws people out. No one runs against her. She was my clear-cut choice as number one.
Okay. Well, I, for the most part, agreed with you. My number 4, I went Katie Studnicki down at Utica. I thought it was a really...
She had a great year.
It was a really
She was
good
my
year
number
for
5.
pitchers in the area. We had, and when you consider Sarah Vela down at Warren Mott, who quietly had a nice year pitching as well, obviously not the level of competition in the Gold, but Studnicki was an excellent pitcher. Unfortunately, didn't play Stevenson because it was either a rain
Right.
out or a swine flu. So the only teams that played her locally, Warren Mott saw her and did nothing against her. And for Ford, the first time she played Ford, she had a perfect game through 7 innings.
Yeah. And lost
then
in
someone
at 12.
made an error, so she had a no-hitter through 9 innings.
Right.
And then she lost the shutout in the game in the 12th when someone made an error, and then finally Colts came through and hit the game-winning double. And then all she did to follow that up was one kind of fluky hit and a complete game shutout. I think for the year against Ford, she didn't walk anyone and struck out like 28 hitters in 17 innings or something ridiculous like that with no earned runs. So.
You may want to put her on your fantasy team because I've looked
Yeah.
at your pitching. You might need some help.
Who's in first? I
Who's
think I
leading
am.
this week?
Okay.
But no, if we would have had a number 5, no doubt, Katie Studnicki would have been my number 5.
And it was a nice find for them because they lost their number 1 pitcher to Country Day. Dyer transferred
Right.
out, and then to have Katie Studnicki kind of fall in your lap is a pretty nice find. And 222 strikeouts in only 132 innings
That's amazing.
is pretty outstanding. And only a junior, she'll be back with a vengeance next year. I've got a Jessie Plague, number 3. Jessie's the 2-time defending Player of the Year award winner. So she's been,
that's right, she is.
I mean, she's been consistent, and she's pretty much been where she's at since she was a sophomore. She throws strikes, as you said, and the thing that's impressive about Jessie is that even when Stevenson would play top-notch competition, and their schedule was really a juggernaut schedule this year. They played, I think, 12 teams that were ranked in the top 10 in the state. I know it was double digits. It was 10 or 12. And if she did give up a gopher ball or give up a long ball or her team made errors behind her, you could never tell the difference if she was striking out the side or getting hit hard on the rare occasion that it did happen. She always kept her composure, very good teammate. I think she made the all-academic team, all-state, so she's a very smart player. The one area that I thought that she would maybe improve in, that she didn't over her career, I thought she was going to develop into a pretty good hitter because she's very strong. I thought she might not hit for average, but I thought she was going to hit for great power, and that never quite came. I think she's more focused on the pitching part of
She
things.
hit a little bit more this year, but if I remember right, the other 2 years that she was playing when she was pitching, she didn't hit a lot. They EH'd a lot for her.
Yeah, and this year they had some spots at the end of the lineup that if she was able to hit, they probably would have gotten her in there because they had a little hard time with the 8-9 spot in the lineup. But I mean, Jessie, just a solid performer, and I think her consistency maybe made her fall off the radar a little bit because she's been right there for the last 3 seasons. Number 2, I had Jill Colts. The MAC White isn't the MAC Red, but it's not that far off. And against Stevenson on the biggest stage in the biggest game, she throws a complete game shutout in the district final. She hits a solo home run off of Plague in a 2-0 game. The game before that, Ford beats Chippewa 2-1, and she goes the distance and hits a solo home run in that game. She hit the walk-off hit against Utica to end the 12 or 13 inning marathon. She's a clutch player, and we tend to look at pitchers first, and if that pitcher can also hit, which Cults is an underrated hitter,
Right.
as you said, just outstanding hitter. We elevate them up there, and I thought it was a little bit of a shame that she didn't make first team All County in that utility spot
Right.
because of her ability to do both things. So I had her number 2, and I had Marissa Borkowski number 1. Pretty much everything as you said. 32 RBIs from the leadoff position and
amazing.
22 doubles. It's just mind-boggling.
And how about the 19 stolen bases from a catcher?
Yeah, and only 3 stolen bases allowed all year. She hit 579, and it was a legit 579. She's just a very talented player. And the one thing I don't think that people realize about Stevenson, and you wouldn't know this unless you talked to Coach Mizuraka, they called the battery of Borkowski and Plague, at least for much of the year, called their own pitches.
Right.
And no one in softball, at least, ever does it. It's always
No.
a coach calling the
Right.
pitches, but he allowed them the freedom, at least for most of the
About half
season.
of
I
the
don't know if they continued throughout, but that's a lot of faith to put into someone, and Borkowski able to pull that off as well.
And the votes?
And the votes, we have a tie. So, as close as it can get. It's not our first tie. I'm sure it won't be our last. But Cults and Borkowski tie for first. So, I guess pretty deserving. You can make an argument for both based on the hitting and pitching of Cults. Cults, not the best pitcher in the area, but very close. Studnicki finishes 3rd. Jesse Plague is 4th. Then we got a drop off of Mackenzie Jones. Catherine Reyes, very nice shortstop. Quietly good year. Her junior season down at Warrenmont. Kayla Kabisky and Ashley Lapicola, who a pretty good hitter in her own right down at Sterling Heights. Much better pitcher this year, but again, the level of competition. And she honestly wasn't helped out, and they committed so many errors behind her that it was a little difficult to judge her.
She did have problems with walks.
Yeah.
And that kind of hurt her throughout her career so far. And she, but she did have a good year. No doubt about it.
All right, relatively quickly on to baseball now, where it was another very difficult vote.
Yes, it was. Number 4, I picked Andy Orr from Utica, shortstop pitcher. I picked him more for his offensive achievement. I don't think I ever saw him hit a weak ground ball. Everything was a bullet. I mean, this kid just hits darts all over the place. I saw him one day out at Rochester High with the wind blowing in, and he hit a line shot that I think it was like 380 to center field, and all you heard was boom.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, the kid just hit nothing but darts all around the field. 3rd place to put Robert Southard from Warrenmont. Had an outstanding season, 2 home runs, 26 RBIs, hit 404. Played in the baseball coaches all-star game down at Comerica Park for the seniors. Playing with the best of the best. There were 5 kids in that game that were drafted by major league teams. So, I picked him 3rd. Josh Andrakek from Stevenson, who also played in that all-star game. One of the best catchers I've seen come out of Stevenson. And Coach Emanuel's had a ton of them come through there. But Josh is going to be remembered for his defensive ability and how to handle pitchers. And number 1, I took Jason Fracassa, the junior shortstop from Stevenson. Great leader, hit 500, 4 home runs, 30 RBIs. Became a closer. Unlike Fernando Rodney, where you had to chew your fingernails and make sure that you can get through the 9th inning or the 7th inning. Fracassa, when he came in, he was pretty much lights out.
All right, my number 4, my voting. I thought this year Stevenson set them apart as the best team in the area. Unlike the other sports where teams didn't face each other that much, Stevenson faced everybody and cleaned everybody's clock. They mercied Utica. They mercied Sterling Heights. They clobbered Warrenmont. They mercied Ford. They wiped the mat with everyone in the area in the head-to-head, which was big for me personally. It kind of showed that they were kind of head and shoulders above. And my voting reflected that for the most part. I picked Mike Catula as my number 4.
Great year.
First baseman, 8 homers, 38 RBIs, huge power, really developed as a good pitcher, and he's going to be one of their leading pitchers next year. Came up in the districts in a game where no one could get anyone out, and finally, after yielding a home run, shut down the Big Reds, and that vaulted Stevenson to the district title. So congratulations to him. He had a very nice junior year. I agreed with you. Andy Orr, excellent offensively. Didn't do much pitching.
His brother did most of that.
Yeah, some trouble in the field defensively. I think he had 13 errors, but he moved from center field to shortstop, so a bit of an adjustment.
Never easy.
But a great hitter, 464, 4 homers, 34 ribbies, in a season where, especially early on, teams just pitched around him until Ben and some of the other guys started to prove they could hit a little bit. He walked 22 times, only struck out 7, which is a great number as a hitter. Anytime you walk 3 more times than you strike out.
It just scares the daylight side when you're standing there trying to take pictures and you know he's looking right down your way.
No, but he did hit bullets and an excellent hitter. I've got Josh Andrejczyk, number 2. Joe Emanuel just praised him up and down defensively. Joe says that they don't have the year they have without him.
Exactly.
And his leadership and his defensive skills behind the plate, very good arm. And a lot like Marissa Borkowski, some unheralded speed from the catcher position.
Right.
Over 20 stolen bases as a catcher. He hit 400. He drove in big runs. Very good year for the Titans. But my number 1, and we try not to put too much weight on, well, all things being equal, you give it to the senior. If a guy had a great year as an underclassman, you give it to him because you don't know his health going forward, and you give it to him in the year that he had the great year. And Fracassa became just the second Titan under Emanuel to hit 500. As you said, really thrived in closing out games. Great power, very good hitter. And just like he elevated his game from sophomore to junior year on the football field, he was already a pretty good baseball player defensively, but he just, again, off the charts development from sophomore to junior year in the baseball field. He seemed to relax a little more and be a little more comfortable. He's a great one. They had Andrew Stafford, and pretty fortunate for Emanuel to have Stafford 4 years, then a year of Persicino, and then 4 years of Fracassa there. Only 6 errors and just outstanding defensively. He could get to some balls that other people couldn't get to, and had a cannon to unload it. So I had him as my number 1. He was just he's a great player, and will play eventually.
Before we run out of time, let's get to the top 4 because it looks very similar to what I have. Go ahead.
Okay.
I like this.
Yeah, Fracassa, number 1.
Oh, that's what I had.
I had that as well. And Andrejczyk was number 2.
Me too.
And Southard, number 3.
Look at that.
Yeah.
3 in a row.
Yeah, you're doing well there. Andy Orr was 4th.
Oh, wow. That's just what I had.
Ben Philomen, great power hitter for Warren Mott, was 5th, 7 home runs, 23 ribbies. Ben Orr was 6th. Pitcher and hitter, hit .353 this year for Utica and was 6-3 on the hill for the Chieftains. Terry Gissendaner finished his 7th. Center fielder for Henry Ford II, hit over 400. Brian Falta struggled with his control a little bit at times, but when he was on, very good pitcher, 6-4 for Stevenson. And then Catula, there's my vote, finishes 8th there. And one other guy I wanted to mention that that didn't get a lot of pub, Lucas Ross, a freshman pitcher for Warren Mott, 8-1 as a freshman for the varsity. On the road, got the win in the game that clinched to share the Mac White title, and then got their only win in the playoffs. So Mott, very good team, and if I didn't have any Mott kids in my top 4, but if you asked for a 5, 6, 7, I would have gone Mott. So, I mean, they're a quality team and a great turnaround for Sean Malone.
And I think maybe the future is looking bright for them heading into next year.
Yeah, and the future's looking like
And the sun's going down.
The next time we'll be talking about football. We'll preview the football season. It's going to be a pretty interesting year in football.
It just seems like it's right around the corner.
I know it won't be long. So
We're
hopefully
going right
we get
from
some
spring to fall.
That's right. Some long runs from our football teams. Hopefully a little better than our spring sports.
Exactly.
But thanks as always for coming on and helping us out. That does it for this edition of Sports Timeout. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.